Oh my goodness. Woomer. Let me say that name again. Woomer, which is, from my understanding, I had to read the email a couple of times. The founder of Woomer was apparently a huge cat lover, and the way the message is written, or the story is written, either the cat's purr is why they called it Woomer, or the cat's name was Woomer. I couldn't tell. Either way, I love the story, and I think at this time, Woomer may be the greatest cat name ever. Now, I'm going to tell you, the next thing I say, take with a grain of salt. These may be the greatest color pencils ever. They're not the greatest color pencil ever, but I sure do love them. Everything about this pencil just, it took me by surprise. When I saw them, I'd never heard of them, never seen them before, hadn't heard anybody talking about them, and then they show up and they are gorgeous. They are absolutely gorgeous. And when I took the slip case off, again, I love this. It is completely a less is more, but who says, you know what, we're gonna make a bright orange tin with just our logo on it, and that's all. I adore this case. This is, I think, art in its most simple form and at its finest. What I would have liked to have seen, and this is now just me nitpicking, is that beautiful piece of rice paper that welcomes you, as if to say, these are great color pencils. Behold my glory. It didn't have that. I know most people just throw that stuff away anyway, so it's not a big deal. But I would have liked to have seen that in these pencils. But if you just look at them, they're gorgeous. Now, I believe I'm like a lot of you. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say about 40% of you probably buy pencils for the wrong reasons. Whether it's marketing or the way the pencil looks, or the biggest one is the packaging. You know, if they come in a really cool case, a lot of us gravitate towards that. And I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, you know, you've been burnt by that. I try not to look at it that way. Every pencil I get, every set I get is just another pencil to test out, to compare to ones that might be, you know, top of the line versus ones that are just bad. So I rarely ever have regrets when it comes to getting new sets of pencils. I love everything about it. This set of pencils, I just knew that the pencil itself could not match what I saw the casing to be, just, you know, to be superb. And I would have been wrong, because these pencils are phenomenal. The colors they offer, look at them. They're just beautiful. This pencil reminds me of, like, maybe a Mitsubishi or like an Arteza, where it's this solid, big, bold color. If we look at one, they have a nice high gloss on them. You have your Woomer logo on one side. You have your stats on the other side. My biggest complaint, second biggest complaint, would be that this label is actually really hard to read. It's a beautiful gold foil, but unless the light is hitting it perfect, or that is to say, if the light's not hitting it at all, you could actually read. It has the color name, but it also has the organization number. I found myself constantly moving my head from side to side so the glare wouldn't hit it, so I could see which pencil it was when I was trying to find it according to the family swatch sheet, and I did struggle with that. My first biggest complaint, and last complaint, there's 72. I want 120. I want 120 of these pencils so bad. I can tell you right now, this will be a set that I'm going to run to when I'm just messing around, and if I want to color a freebie that I've drawn, I'm going to most likely grab this set. They were just old school fun. This reminds me, do y'all remember when Arteza came out, and Artex, you know, the very similar pencils? Before that, you know, you had your big names and everybody talked about the big names. when this brand of pencil came out, they were like the Prismacolor you could afford. And I remember everybody talking about them because they had that smooth wax feel with a high pigment, but they weren't outrageously priced. And it was a game changer in the world of color pencils. This had that feel. This reminded me of what it was like to grab a pencil for the first time after only using nice ones or only using bad ones or low quality ones. Then here comes Woomer. The reason I'm laughing is I feel in my bones I am overselling these pencils, and I probably am. This is a personal thing. I personally like these pencils so much. I have zero problem recommending them, but it's that same thing. I don't want to oversell them because I think some of you are going to get them and be like, "What? This feels just like Artex, or it feels just like a Mitsubishi," and they do. They probably feel very familiar, but again, the color palette was different. If we actually look, if we look at the family swatch, it's a beautiful range. They had some cools mixed in the warms as far as your grays go. Your yellows are where you want them, and they smoothly transition into your reds and your oranges. They also transition wonderfully into your browns. You have a decent amount of purples. The purples vary, so it's not that like 3 purples and they all look identical. You have your turquoise. You have some beautiful rich greens. Your blues are definitely not lacking. You have your peaches and your pinks. You seem to have everything that you really need. The only color really that I felt was a little short was they didn't have a big range of orange. But having said that, they do have a dark orange and a light orange, and that's all you're going to need, because you can transition from there into your red or into your yellow, and that's fine by me. Something that I did think that was fantastic, if you've seen any of my videos, usually when I'm talking about the color range, I'll gravitate right to a light blue. I use light blue all the time. Now this applies to me, but they have a fantastic light blue. Again, I go to this because I think it's the most used color in all of my sets. I just find a way to slip in the backgrounds, or anytime I'm using blue, I'm going to grab that light blue. But it is an absolutely beautiful palette. Oh, and something else I want to point out. When I was coloring, I dropped one of the pencils on the floor, and when I leaned down to grab it, I realized on the inside of the sleeve, they have their swatch sheet. I don't think I'd ever seen this before. Now, since somebody has pointed out on my Facebook page, they pointed out that I think Caran has done this as well. I've never seen this before, and it was another thing that I was impressed by. If you look at it, I got this one opened up where you could actually see, and what's nice too, like the outside of the paper is glossy, and the inside has more of a tooth on it. So this won't be a bad swatch sheet. The fact that they've done this is very clever, and I'm really impressed by it. Okay, so where to begin? As far as talking about the attributes on this pencil, I'm going back and forth from trying not to oversell it to just talking about how much I personally enjoyed them. And I think they're going to feel familiar to you. You're going to use these, but again, a good familiar. You're going to use these, and it's going to remind you when you go from a cheaper, harder pencil to an Artex, to a Prismacolor, and there's just a jump in quality. And this is going to fall under a softer pencil. It just has that flow to it where you're not fighting as you're pushing the pigment onto the paper. Right when I started swatching it, and I rarely ever give or even accept my own opinion on a pencil's quality when I'm swatching, just because, it's not until you really get into the deep dive of coloring a picture where you're really starting to pick up all of that pencil's attributes. But I enjoyed swatching them. And then when going to color, it just, the fun continued. As far as your blenders go, I was able to blend these from just a few layers to a lot of layers, and using an aggressive blender or a soft blender. These seem very subjectable to any form of blender, and I was throwing a few different ones at it just to see. I was trying to find its Achilles, and there really wasn't much of one. They all seemed to layer really well, and they blended really well, and it, there was indeed a certain joy to just having fun and turning your brain off and not dealing with the struggle of coloring. So as far as talking about quality, you will indeed have a set of pencils that are going to be a not only higher, but probably a much higher quality than these. But when you're drawing your line from cheap to expensive, I promise you, these are going to fall on the side of the expensive when it comes to the quality they're going to perform. So there's no way I'm not going to not recommend these pencils. Just know that I'm probably a little biased from the moment I opened the tin to the moment I started coloring. But if I'm being honest, I truly, with every fiber of my being, I truly believe that you would not regret adding this to your collection.
Sugar Solito.